lessons 2 and 3 and even 4 are going to go back and look at those 3 central functions of the law. And we remember that the law, the moral law defines what sin is. The ceremonial law deals with sin through sacrifice and forgiveness. And the judicial law looks at the punishing of sin. And so what we see in Jesus beautifully is that he fulfills all 3 of those. And lesson 2 is focused on that moral law. And we recall through the covenant story from Adam forward that obedience is important to God and that he created us in his image so that we might reflect his character. And of course, from Adam forward, we have betrayed that image. And so covenant brings grace back into the picture as God is saving his people, but also introduces the importance of obedience. And we see that throughout, especially in the Mosaic covenant, which is focused on, I'm going to make you a holy nation. I'm going to sanctify you. You're going to be holy as I am holy. And so sin and obedience has been a part of this story of the covenant all along. And what we see with Jesus' coming is his desire to be everything that God wanted us to be. All through the New Testament, Jesus is described as the sinless one, the righteous one, the just one, the obedient one. We're going to look at places like Romans 5 and Hebrews 3 and 10 to really focus in on this theme that Jesus is sinless. Jesus fulfills the moral law. And that word fulfillment is going to be important throughout this because that's kind of the word that we look at when we talk about Jesus as the climax of the covenant story. What is the relationship between the old and the new, between that earlier story and Jesus? And in a word, we have centered on the word fulfill. That's the relationship. Jesus fulfills that. And all of these lessons are really going to be unpacking what fulfillment looks like under the new covenant. Jesus himself gave us this word when in the beginning of his ministry, when he said, I've not come to destroy the law and the prophets, but to fulfill them. So that's the relationship. It's these lessons that are going to show us what that fulfilling looks like in the new covenant. In this lesson, we're going to see how Jesus fulfills the law. All the apostles agree that sin is the transgression of the law, and all the apostles agree that Jesus is the sinless one. That's why he was able to be this sacrifice for us, which is really what lesson 3 is about. A better sacrifice is showing how Israel's whole ceremonial and sacrificial system under the priesthood, under the law, was really pointing towards something more substantial, something better. It was a picture, an illustration, if you will, of what Jesus was all about in his sacrificial life. And what's fascinating to me about the apostles' writings is when they began to try to think about what does Jesus' death and resurrection mean, they look beyond just physical crucifixion and they begin to describe it in sacrificial language. So Jesus everywhere is the lamb. He's the spotless lamb. It's the blood of the lamb. And so the apostles began to take Israel's old ceremonial system and apply those things to what Jesus has done. He's called a Passover sacrifice. He's called a new covenant sacrifice. He's referred to as a burnt offering and a sin offering. All these different ways of describing Jesus are sacrificial. And so the picture for us, the fulfilling of the law in that sense, we see Jesus bringing to life, if you will, those outward ceremonies, bringing them to life for true forgiveness, for true reconciliation and atonement for sin.